Hey, Industrial Talk is brought to you by Cap Logistics. You want to minimize downtime? Absolutely. Increase reliability? You bet. Ensure operational profitability? Yes, you do. That means you need 24/7, 365 insights into your supply chain. Look no further. Cap Logistics. Go to caplogistics.com or just call them. They're great people. 800-227-2471. Also, TX1. Now, you know cybersecurity is important if you're on this digital transformation journey. TX1 Networks has the solutions for you. And you're saying to yourself, Scott, they're going to be complex. They're going to be difficult. No, TX1's taken that into consideration, and they provide a suite of solutions that truly meet your cybersecurity needs. Go out to tx1-networks.com and find out more. You're not going to be disappointed.
Welcome to the Industrial Talk Podcast with Scott McKenzie. Scott is a passionate industry professional dedicated to transferring cutting-edge, industry-focused innovations and trends while highlighting the men and women who keep the world moving. So put on your hard hat, grab your work boots, and let's go.
All right, you industrial professionals all around the world, thank you very much for joining Industrial Talk, the place, the platform, the community, the digital world that celebrates you industrial professionals. You are bold, you're brave, you dare greatly, you solve problems, you innovate, you educate, you're doing everything to change people's lives and therefore change the world. Try to change my mind on that. Dare you. All right, in the hot seat, we have Rosemary Coates. And you're going to, in this interview, you're going to realize that she knows more about reshoring than you do. And I, being the guy that I am, and I love learning, and I love just soaking up from professionals like I'm that industrial sponge, she's going to be talking about reshoring manufacturers here in the United States. She's passionate about it. Let's get cracking. Yeah, she is. She is. It's great when you come across somebody that is, one, smarter than you. Yep. I like surrounding myself with people who are smarter. Really, just bold, brave, and daring greatly. She's bold, brave, and daring greatly. Hang out with her, you're going to really change the world. I always say that, right? But anyway, you know, she's got some mad street cred out there. You go out to reshoringinstitute.org, you see what they're doing, and it's impressive. They have answers. You don't just flip a switch and reshore. You've got to create a viable and an important strategy all around that, right? And you need people like Rosemary and Team Reshoring Institute to be able to help you through that before we get into that conversation, because I know you're waiting for it. Industrial Talk 2.0 is out there. It not only just highlights great interviews with the best around the world in industry, but it also provides news. Because we want to be able to provide a platform that is, with no friction, go out there, get some great news, right? Industrial Talk, I need some news. There it is. Fantastic. Also, we have an Industrial Tuesday News Day, right? And that means we're going to be talking about the news. We're going to just, it's me, right? And I'm going to expand upon it. And I'm going to ask the tough questions because maybe I just don't know, but they do. People out there, industry knows. We're going to be talking about the heart, what industry is doing to improve in a positive way communities. We're also going to see things that are in action. We talk about Industry 4.0. Let's see it in action. I want to see it. Let's have a little video out there on that. Those are going to be out there. Now, the one that gets me all bubbly and warm and fuzzy is the fact that we've got the Industrial Academy. It's a learning management system. It highlights all of the great industrial thinkers out there that are dedicated to training and learning and teaching. And we're working with an organization down in Uganda, and we're going to be offering that for free. If you buy a membership, I offer it for free down there. It's for free. It's important. That's transformative. They're looking for help. They're looking for insights. They're looking for knowledge. They're ready to educate. They're ready to collaborate, and they are ready to innovate to help change their lives. Then we have associations, and then we have events. And then anything else in between. We're going to be talking about the hard. We're going to be talking about fun stuff. We're going to be talking because industry, manufacturing, oil and gas, energy, utilities, it's fun stuff. And what you're doing out there is incredible. Yeah, I'm trying to remove all the friction to get that information and for you to collaborate so that you're a success going forward. Woo, am I tired on that one. Let's get cracking on the interview. So Rosemary, of course, she's been down this road for many years. She knows what she's talking about. She has a process. And if you're truly looking to, reshore your business, you need to talk to Rosemary. You need to talk to Team Reshoring Institute. At a minimum, just talk to them, right? They're wonderful people. They understand. And quite honestly, you don't have the ability to be able to do it or understand some of the challenges that are taking place, but they do. And they're wonderful people. Anyway, we're going to have a great conversation. Enjoy Rosemary. Rosemary, welcome to Industrial Talk. Thank you very much for finding time in your busy schedule to talk to the best listeners in the whole wide world. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
It's all on this side, man. I'm just telling you, you bring a topic that is near and dear to my heart, but also on the front of mind with many people within the industrial space, and that is reshoring. Before we get into that conversation, sort of give us a little 411, a little background on Rosemary and why you're such an incredible professional.
Oh, thank you.
Did I catch you off guard on that one?
I've been around for a long time.
You are. You're an incredible. I mean, I look at your stat card out there on LinkedIn. It's impressive. Mine doesn't look that impressive, but yours does. It's impressive. All right, go. Tell me your story.
So I've been in the global supply chain and manufacturing world for almost 40 years. I was in management consulting, a partner in a couple firms for a while. I've been doing consulting for probably 25 years or so. And in 2012, during the presidential election, both Barack Obama and Mitt Romney were China bashing like crazy. And I had been doing a lot of sourcing and manufacturing in China. Was helping a lot of clients close their factories in the U.S. and move their stuff to China. That's what my clients wanted, and so I became an expert in doing that. So during the election, they're China, Barack and Mitt are China bashing like crazy, and I'm like, oh man, I can't tell anybody what I do for a living. This is really awful. And that together with just I started feeling really bad about shutting down these factories and causing these layoffs. And so I was helping these companies to rethink their global manufacturing and sending things overseas. And so, it really started to get to me. And then about the same time, we had a family reunion. I've got 5 grandkids. And, I'm looking at them thinking, man, if I keep doing this stuff, they're not going to have a future.
Wow.
Manufacturing is the backbone of America, and I knew we were putting a giant hole in it. So, I gathered my people together, and we developed a methodology for helping clients evaluate how they might be able to bring manufacturing back. So we have a methodology in place.
See, and that's a great segue. That's a great segue.
Out of that grew the Reshoring Institute.
Yeah.
So we incubated at the University of San Diego for a couple of years, and now we're nationwide. We take interns from 15 universities and do a lot of research and consulting work, helping companies bring manufacturing back to America. And you know what? It feels really good. It feels really good.
Nobody's bashing you now. You're at the top of your game there, Rosemary, top of your game, because I'll tell you, a lot of the listeners and a lot of the topics and a lot of the conversations that I've had, especially when the pandemic hit, right, is that whole supply chain. And I've spoken to many within the manufacturing space, and of course the conversation was, I'm having problems getting my material, and then that began the conversation of like reshoring, onshoring, nearshoring, whatever, of these critical manufacturings manufacturers to bring them back into the United States. Why is this so important to you and for our country?
Well, if you think back a few years, let's say even 20 years or 40 years ago, manufacturing was 25% of our economy. And today it's less than 11%. And so in the meantime,
don't gloss over that stat. What did you say? 40%? Now it's down to 11%?
11, it's a little bit less than 11%. Right. And manufacturing's the backbone of the economy. It has the highest rate of investment. It has the highest rates of how much it contributes to each economy. It's really, really important. I mean, just look what happened in China. Parts of their economy can be tied to about 80% manufacturing. And over 25 years, they went from like 0 to 60, with speeding along because they built on the back of manufacturing. And, unfortunately, we lost during that period. So, what we know is that economically, it's really important to rebuild manufacturing in America. And so, that's what we're trying to help do.
So with that said, I mean, so there are people that are probably listening and saying, gosh, I like what you say. And rightly so. They should, because you are definitely providing a solution, a service, a direction, a roadmap that allows people to do that. And I know that there's a lot of people who are wondering how to do it. What are the steps? Can you sort of just give us a little, little step-by-step of what me, as if I'm a manufacturer, that I'm manufacturing here, but my suppliers are not there. What do I need to do? How do I work with that?
Yeah, that's a really important point. As manufacturing went overseas, so did all the suppliers. So, supply chains have been moved to Asia essentially over the past 25 years as well. So, the steps are, well, let me back up for a minute, because when we talk about reshoring, we're really talking about manufacturing that comes back from overseas, number one, but it's also about expanding manufacturing here that's already here. It's also about looking at your suppliers and attracting suppliers back to the U.S. So if you're manufacturing here, you've got to look for suppliers that are here. And we see that building. So that's really important. And it's also about foreign direct investment. So if foreign companies want to build a factory in the U.S., Toyota, for example, or BMW, or a host of other companies want to invest and build their factories here, that's great for our economy too. That counts, right? So when we're trying to go through the steps in how to do this, how to reshore, we include all of those different factors. And then we help companies with the economic modeling. Sometimes we help them find factory locations or expand their factories. We do sourcing projects where we help find suppliers in the U.S. So we do all kinds of consulting work as well as research.
See, and it would make sense, because let's say I'm manufacturing in Asia someplace. I'm over there. I've been there for years. The infrastructure is there to support me. My supply chain is there. My feedstock is over there. So when I'm done manufacturing whatever that widget might be, I just slap it on a container, slip it on over. It gets purchased over here. No pain, no gain, nothing. It's just all done. But if I want to come back over here, I have to be cognitive of my supply chain, right? I need that bolt, but I get that bolt over there, and it's still sort of in a supply chain is sort of in a weakened state. Am I looking at that right?
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. It is indeed a weakened state. And, as I said, when manufacturing moved overseas, all the suppliers moved overseas as well. So you can't just rip out manufacturing from China or Malaysia or Vietnam and establish it in the U.S. and expect to have suppliers here too. So we help companies rebuild that supply base as well. There's a lot of issues around labeling also. So, companies would love to label their products made in the USA.
Yeah.
But there are FTC, U.S. Customs, and TAA requirements that are all regarding labeling, and so that's why you see a lot of products that say assembled in the USA, and that means that they have brought products or parts or subassemblies from overseas and put them together in the US, which is good. I mean, it's a step in the right direction, but we'd much rather have everything sourced in the US, not just from overseas.
So that would be an ideal state, right? Let's say it's all back over here. We're having a good time. We're manufacturing. We've got the supply chain, but that's just not going to. Is there a sort of a balance between the necessity to bring some of the manufacturing and then also leveraging other foreign, suppliers to help sort of solve the solution? Is there sort of a balance there?
That's exactly right. So even though we're called the Reshoring Institute, we really think of it as global manufacturing strategy. And by that, I mean keeping manufacturing in the local area, the region, that's going to serve people there. So, for example, the Chinese economy is growing, around 8% or so. It has some ups and downs with the pandemic, but on average, if you looked at it long term, you'd say 7 to 8% is probably a good percentage. So that's an enormous growth, right?
It's like, man, you're throwing out some stats that are just sort of tongue drop type of like, what? Gosh,
yeah.
It's massive.
So if it's growing at that percentage, that's going to be your target market and your growth market in the future. So you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and say, well, we're going to just manufacture in America. You need to probably keep some manufacturing in Asia, as well as you may consider Mexico or Europe, Eastern Europe, perhaps.
Yeah.
Places where you can manufacture and serve those local markets. And so we think of this as a global strategy, where to put your factories and so forth.
And I have to interrupt. When you do that, when you look at that global model, are you taking into consideration a resiliency? Like, pre-pandemic gets hit by pandemic, everybody global gets hammered, right? Are we looking at it also from the perspective of resiliency? Like, hey, this is the right strategy. It might cost you a little bit more, but you've got resiliency.
Yeah, if even over the past few years, so the Tax Reform Act of 2017 was helpful to suppliers or to manufacturers in America. Although it didn't drive much manufacturing back, it just gave manufacturers a break. The tariffs and the tariff wars were supposed to drive manufacturing back, and that didn't happen either. It just created some additional costs. But the pandemic, holy cow, because it introduced risk into global supply chains, all of a sudden, now you have a different perspective. Manufacturers are thinking about risk and, telling stories about how they couldn't get supplies during the pandemic and so forth. So, the attitudes have definitely shifted.
Yeah, and it's interesting when you bring it down. Pre-pandemic, I'd go to the store, I'd get my stuff, I'd come back. During the pandemic, I'd go to the store, the shelves are not full, I can't get certain things, and all of a sudden the consumer, Joe Six-Pack here, is having a hard time. And I'm a supply chain expert, and I know it's important.
It's so funny because I used to have to explain all the time what I did for a living and what supply chain was. Now everybody talks about the supply chain. It's kind of the buzzword, right?
It is. It's along the same lines as COVID, supply chain. It's like, yeah, I know about that. All of a sudden, I've graduated.
It really exposed, like you were saying, some vulnerabilities in our supply chains too. Like, I was so frustrated. I couldn't get Clorox wipes or Lysol wipes for like 9 months. And come on, it's a simple product. It's a plastic tube with a little bit of Clorox in it and some paper towels, right? But yet these companies were unable to fill the demand, right? Even with contract manufacturing and so forth, it just was a complete breakdown of supply chains. It just was so frustrating to me being a supply chain professional.
So what's interesting is I didn't realize how fragile it was. I knew what supply chain was, but I didn't realize how just fragile it's like. One day we're fine. Next day it's like, okay, all hell's breaking loose. I can't find anything. And it was just a matter of overnight. I go, wow, that's a dainty doily.
And not just consumers, but if you take like Hyundai in Korea, the automotive center in China is Wuhan. So it's like the Detroit of China. So Wuhan is where all this automotive stuff was coming from. And because so many companies were practicing lean and had practically no inventory, and just making sure that pipeline was moving along, when Wuhan shut down, it caused an instant pinch in those supply chains. So Hyundai in Korea couldn't get parts, and they shut down their production line within a week. 1 week. I mean, it was astonishing how much effect it had on manufacturers around the world.
I saw it. I want to say a video, something that was out there. What was interesting is that how people are reevaluating that just-in-time inventory strategy. There are times when you use it, right? And then there's times when you just say, these are critical parts. I've got to have inventory. Just bite the bullet, carry that inventory. And that's more of a more reasonable approach to your inventory and your inventory management, just because not everything could be just in time. Maybe, polycarbonate where there's a gazillion manufacturers, but your chips, no, you can't just do that. You can't just have just in time on that one. Let me ask you this.
We're certainly experiencing shortages in chips these days, right? Semiconductors are in short supply around the world.
Who would have known? I mean, come on. It's like, really? You can't get that chips out?
That's funny because I live in Silicon Valley, and I have some friends in the computer industry, and there were like instant shortages, and it never occurred to me that what was going on until I was talking to a friend. He's like, there's so many people buying computers, laptops for their kids for school or work at home or that kind of thing. And he said, we cannot keep up with demand.
Is it
just, so it wasn't just Clorox wipes, it was everything.
God,
right?
It's just amazing. It really is. Now, when we start talking about reshoring, do you look at the resource base? Let's say I want to bring up a bolt I'm simplifying. Trust me, I'm sure it's far more complicated, but I'm a simple guy. Bring in a bolt manufacturer and let's do a reshoring project. But I'm not just going to stick it out in the middle of the Mojave Desert where there's nobody that lives there. You've got to find the right resource base, right? That has sort of some skills, some ability to be able to do that, right?
And so this is a complex problem for sure.
It's
so
huge.
For example, So for example, you may have bolts which are hopefully you can automate that and extract labor costs out of the cost, because the cost structure is really important. We don't want the 23 cent an hour t-shirt production back in America, because it does not pay a living wage. And if we don't pay a living wage, we have to supplement those people's income with welfare. So we don't want to create a welfare state, right?
Yeah,
So
not a viable option.
What we want are the higher skilled, higher paying jobs to come back, and through automation. So we want the people who run the robots, not who put pegs in holes. We want the people with the skills that run the robots that put pegs in holes. And that's a different skill set. It's more different training, and it pays better. So that's where we're aiming for. Economically, that's the right ladder to climb. So I think I went off on a tangent.
No, that's exactly correct. And I like that. And it's especially with this push for digitization, this desire to provide the Industry 4.0 solution in manufacturing and it's a skilled trade that requires tremendous training. But if you do it, you invest today, it reaps benefits, because that is something that is needed for the future. And again, we talk resilience, we talk about the durability of businesses and innovation, and that type of approach is, well,
Yeah, I think I think people understand that, especially in manufacturing, that you have to move towards digitization. Digitization.
It's tough.
And I think there's a fundamental understanding about that. There's no question about that.
Yeah.
Let me introduce some risk, though. In the other half of my workday, I do legal work. I'm an expert witness for primarily for Chinese imports lawsuits and global manufacturing lawsuits. And when you move towards digitizing your information, right? Now you're creating evidence. So, I mean, it's a great idea to interface with other companies, to send forecasts and production results back and forth, and connect in those ways, connect all the machines on your shop floor, all of that, as well as improving your machinery and all that sort of thing. But keep in mind, every time you create a record, you have evidence. And in some of the lawsuits. Some of the lawsuits, I've coached the attorneys to go and ask for certain digital information, look at the systems, that sort of thing. And, companies are dumbfounded saying, I didn't know we had that information. And now it points to us, right? So you gotta be
it's
careful.
all out there, and it's been out there. We've just never mined the data. Now we're trying to extract the gold, real gold, to be able to create a business that has some, longevity, whatever the objective is with that data to make better decisions. It's always been out there. They're just trying. Okay, so go ahead.
Yeah, and I think that we talk so much about Industry 4.0 and automation and something which is great and needed, and the way we look at the economics of it, no question about that. But don't forget the other side, right? I mean, you've got to make a balanced decision between risk and benefits that you are looking at with respect to automation.
So this is great. This is important. I agree with you. I think just like everything else, it's not an all or nothing proposition. It's something in the middle where you can create a solution that gives you the resiliency you want, that supply chain, a stronger supply chain, whatever it might be. And I think you can achieve that objective. What are the biggest pushbacks from just saying, hey, yeah, I hear what Rosemary's saying, but I don't want to do it? What is it?
Well, businesses are economic entities, and they're always focused on cost. I mean, you need to, every aspect of a business is about cost, the cost of labor, the cost of new projects, the cost of investment in machinery. I mean, that's fundamental to the way business operates. But what we're seeing emerging is also this thing called the politics of economics, and we're seeing a preference for consumers and industrial buyers to look for products that are made in the USA. In fact, we did a survey last fall, and we surveyed 500 people across America, and they were all walks of life, all education levels, high school degrees, all the way up through PhDs, all regions of the country, all age groups. We had a 18-year-old all the way up to a guy that was almost 90. And we asked them, do you prefer products that are made in the USA? And so we had, statistically about 80% said yes, which didn't surprise us. I mean, nothing really surprised us.
Well, what are you going to say? No, I don't.
But then we asked, okay, would you pay more for those products? And, we got a slightly less response that said, yes, they would. And then we asked, how much would you pay?
Yeah.
How much more would you pay? And the response was between 10 and 20%. 80% of the people who responded said they'd pay between 10 and 20% more, including the industrial buyers. So we used that statistic, that about 15% more that people are willing to pay for goods made in America, as part of the weighing factors when we evaluate reshoring. So if you can get your costs to within about 15% of, say, the China cost, right? And that's including everything, the production, the labor, the
it's landed,
travel,
whatever it is. Yeah,
everything, right? into a total cost of ownership model or TCO model. If we can get that within 15%, we have a winner. We know that Americans are willing to pay more. And then that now is being supported by the policies of the Biden administration, where they're working hard to support the government buying products that are made in the U.S. In a much greater extent than has been in the past, say, 25 years.
This is all great, and I hear what you're saying, and I think that it's all possible. The one thing you need is you need a team on your side to make these decisions. Yeah, I don't think it's a prudent business decision to think that you can do it on your own. You need to understand there's a lot of regulations, a lot of incentives, and a lot of this and a lot of that, and from a business perspective, I'll stay in my lane. I do what I need to do, but I think this is a great conversation to have. Now, secondly, is Mexico a viable option?
It's interesting that you say that. I discovered, kind of stumbled onto it because I have so much background in China. I watch a lot of the things that are happening in China. And I stumbled on an article that was talking about investment in factories at the border. So, being the curious person that I am,
the supply chain professional that you are,
I took one of my interns down to the border at Otay Mesa, which is the commercial crossing in San Diego.
Right.
And we spent the day there, just looking around and touring around. And I had a tour guide that knows the border really well. And factory after factory after factory is being built on the Mexico side, and kind of a majority of them appear to be financed by China. So what China has figured out,
wow.
Yeah. So what China has figured out is if they invest in factories in Mexico, they can make use of USMCA and bring products that are manufactured into Mexico into the U.S. without duty, without tariff rates. And what we're seeing this huge boom along the border, both the construction of factories along the border on the Mexico side and on the U.S. side, a huge amount of construction and development for services that are required. So customs brokers, for example, warehouses, trucking operations. I mean, it was just jaw-dropping how much construction there was on both sides of the border. And trucks for as far as you could see. I mean, there were just trucks waiting to get across the border. It's a commercial crossing, so that means people can't go across, just trucks. But it was astonishing. And we actually wrote a case study about it. It's on our website under the research tab, white papers, called "Boom at the Border." Yeah,
that is
really interesting.
Yeah, it is. The thing that I got out of that, just that statement, I didn't realize, and it's business is very, they know what, it's hard to put in place whatever it is. And so it got me where you're saying China's just help financing this. So they see it, and maybe there's going to be a reduction in China, but it doesn't matter. We're over here and we'll take advantage of some of the favorable tariffs that exist over there. Yeah, makes sense.
I think a lot of U.S. companies are considering Mexico as well. If they need a lower cost environment, or they have a high touch manufacturing site where you have a lot of labor, you got to look to other communities, because in the U.S., I mean, we can't do the 23-cent an hour T-shirt production.
No,
right?
We can't. You're absolutely right. We're going to have to wrap this up. No, I'm sorry. Yeah. I mean, I didn't mean to walk on you. I'm sorry about that. What were you going to say?
No, it's not appropriate to bring that kind of manufacturing back to the U.S. So if you look at a low-cost environment, especially like the interior in Mexico, and we did a study comparing labor rates. And actually, if in the interior of Mexico, the labor rates are comparable to China. So you can get a low-cost region in Mexico. If you have a high-touch manufacturing, you need a lot of people. It's a great place to locate, and then you have access directly to North American markets.
I think what I hear you saying, Rosemary, that there are options out there. And I think that reshoring is an important decision. If you're a manufacturer and you're looking to try to get back here in the United States or build up that supply chain or whatever it might be, I think that what I hear from you is that there are options. You just can't sit there and shrug your shoulders and say, nah, it's not going to work, because there are options.
Clearly, I mean, this is just, for me, looking back, I used to help companies because, the executive would say, we want to move to China. Our competitors are there. We know it's cheaper. And they would just do it without all that much analytical process, determining what the real cost was going to be. I mean, you might look at labor costs, but, keep in mind, you also have to travel there. You have communications problems.
Yeah.
All kinds of issues, right? But yet, these executives would say, because I was the consultant to go to, right? That's okay. We want to go there. We want to manufacture there. Help us set up operations in China, which I did for 15 years. When now, though, the thing to remember about the U.S. is that we can now make an economic case when you look at the total cost of ownership. And we do have options, say Mexico, for example. Of course, the problem with Mexico is it's not America. And we
That's true. It's true.
That's true, right? And we want to build manufacturing in America, so we always want to choose the U.S. as the first area that we examine.
If you can create an economic model that makes sense to put people to work in the United States, I believe that that's the best option. But I believe, too, is that, once again, there is the necessity to balance this all out, right? There are strategies that'll help you as let's say a small to mid-sized manufacturer to be more resilient. And I think that's what you bring to the table with your organization.
Yeah, I think, before you had mentioned, looking at things differently. And over the last 25 years, there was not as much sophistication as I would see today. I mean, today, when we're looking at evaluating these opportunities, the models are more sophisticated. Yeah. The executives are thinking more analytically. There's a more thoughtful approach to global supply chains. I mean, these are things that 25 years ago just didn't exist. There just wasn't that kind of. There was not that kind of. Thoughtfulness and analysis going into it. But the world has changed. Executives have gotten smarter, I'm sure. Purchasing people too.
Yeah, you got better insights. Yeah, we've been doing it for many years. There's and people like you and your organization, Reshoring Institute, clearly have the fingers right on the pulse. This is just such an important topic. Bottom line, and listen to me, manufacturers out there, I want my shelves to be full. And that means you got to start manufacturing here in the United States. It's all about me. It's all about me, Rosemary.
Yeah.
You can join me for the ride, but I want my shelves full. All right. How do people get a hold of you, Rosemary?
Well, first of all, I would encourage everybody to go to our website. It's reshoringinstitute.org. We're a nonprofit and nonpartisan organization, and we publish everything that we do on our website. And you can also check out our interns. We've had, I think, 29 interns over the past few years from all kinds of universities, and they're fun to look at.
Yeah, they are. I looked at them, I said, yep. Bright, shiny faces, ready to conquer the world.
Right. Our interns are all graduate students. Well, for the most part, graduate students, and in business and engineering. So they're like, some of them are really scary smart. We love working with our interns. And then for me personally, you can email me at rcoates, so RCOATES at reshoringinstitute.org.
See? Easy peasy, listeners out there. Rosemary, you were absolutely spectacular. Loved the conversation in a big way.
thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm always willing to talk about reshoring.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, listeners, you're going to have all the contact information, on her podcast, on her landing page, at Industrial Talk. And we're going to wrap it up on the other side. Do not go away.
You're listening to the Industrial Talk Podcast Network.
Yeah, what did I tell you? Mad street cred, mad skills. That stat card out there, Rosemary, yeah, she's the real deal. You've got to reach out to her. All the information is going to be out on Industrial Talk. Find her podcast, listen to it again. It doesn't matter. We've got some great resources for you to take and get moving with this. At least have that conversation, because you won't be disappointed with that. Just get to know her. Man, she's a great person. All right, Industrial Talk 2.0. I've talked about it. We're removing the friction for you to get the information that you need. We're going to be promoting people. We're going to be doing everything we can to make you survive, rebuild, and definitely prosper. We need you, and we need to be able to tell your story. Contact me. Get on Industrial Talk. All right, be bold, be brave, dare greatly. Hang out with people like Rosemary. That's bold, brave, and daring greatly. And you know what you're going to do? Change the world. That's what you're all about. All right, we're going to have another great interview shortly, so stay tuned.